So we will now have the last session. This is a technical confluence of the cloud and the telcos. Here we have a panel of 3 people. May I invite Major General Ravi Chaudhary, former head Digital Army Project. May I have a round of applause, please? Mr. Santosh Akkallu, Global CIO, Cloud and Infrastructure, Bharti Airtel. May I also invite Mr. Faisal Kawusa, founder, Telco. So Mr. Faisal will be conducting this panel. Over to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Good afternoon, panelists. Good afternoon, audience. I hope you all are refreshed with a good lunch. Now, on a lighter note, this happens when we want to talk about use cases. Everybody becomes a bit of uncomfortable in finding out the real use cases. But nevertheless, we have some of the people who have really, decided to kind of be here and share with you what they feel could be the use cases and how is the technology Confluence kind of enabling it. But at the same time, I think since we are talking about use cases, so it would be great if we could have a more interactive audience session because ultimately I think use cases are going to come from users, so which are amongst yourselves. So before I think we start talking about the topic, so we are essentially going to talk about how 5G is kind of consuming each and every technology into it, whether it's maybe a legacy technology or an emerging technology. While we will talk more of telecom and cloud, but I think we can talk about other technologies also which kind of become very important under a 5G scenario. Starting the discussion with probably Mr. Major General Chaudhary. So we have seen cloud there for a long time. We had telecom there for a long time. Where do you see kind of synergies coming out? And with 5G coming in, how do you see that kind of changing or becoming more kind of important or significant?
Okay, so having spent almost 37 years in the Army, would you mind if I be a little more structured and go over the presentation?
Yeah, please, sir.
Thank you. I'll certainly try to cover all the issues which have been raised. When I was asked to talk on this 5G, so I went to Google and said, Google, show me some light. So they showed me this slide. Then, of course, the topic was about techno confluence. And I said, okay, I know a little about cloud. So I'll prepare to take it on. Now, this techno confluence of cloud and telecom is extremely important and has brought out that this is something which has been going on. One gives connectivity, the other gives content. And there's no use of connectivity unless you have a content to deliver at the end of it. That is something that I understand because erstwhile when you had telephone, you connected a person to another person, you thought the content was with the person. Gradually, as the information explosion has taken place, more often than not, we don't know where is the information that I'm seeking. And that is where cloud has come in. Now, I cannot overemphasize the changes that have taken place in the world. It's become more virtual, more visual, more mobile. And the extent of virtualization is increasing by the day. If we look at, now we can look at things in two ways. One is I as an individual consumer, and another I as a member of a nation where economy, security, all those things matter. So if we look at the three elements of national power, which are economy, military, and diplomacy, information is a resource in all three of them, and increasingly the most important one. As you would have seen recently, after abrogation of 370 also, a lot of diplomacy is being conducted through the electronic media more than, on the table. But that apart. And in this world which is, VUCA is something that corporate people have been talking about, which is becoming more virtual, more volatile, more visual and mobile. This improvement of telecom has played a great role in giving us connectivity so that we can get the right content. And one of the fundamental assumptions that we make in all our thinking is that everything must have a coherent logic. And if we don't understand the logic while we are living through it, we try and look at it in retrospect. So let me also try. If we look at, two things have happened. One is the network convergence, and convergence has happened in many ways. First was, of course, digitization, which you could digitize everything from voice, data was already digitized, to video, to sound, everything, audio, images, everything was digitized. So that was a technology which reduced everything to bit streams of ones and zeros. And that converged our voice, data, video communications. Then there was asynchronous communications. It was possible to communicate asynchronously, which of course, converged the way the data and voice worked earlier. Everything came on IP, and that saw another kind of revolution. As we started getting more into content, the security became a problem. And how do you exchange keys over the media of the encryption? So PKI was another thing which allowed you to secure things, and that's how the digital economy, the digital commerce, all these things, took off. And finally is the virtualization technologies, which has given rise to the cloud, where almost everything, right from infrastructure resources to the platform, to my data, to my OS, to my network functions, everything is getting, virtualized. So all these technologies, and there must be many more. I have just, listed some of them. One reason is SmartNAT doesn't allow you to put too many things there on that arrow. So another thing, we look at the end device that we are using. It has undergone a transformation. We had a telephone, and then we had a computer. And then the two combined, I could compute and communicate with the same device. Gradually, it became more and more portable. And then its power requirements started reducing so that I could do a lot more things on the computer in my hand than perhaps I could do with a supercomputer maybe 10 years back. So this device technology, the way it has developed, the network technologies, the way they have developed, they have combined to, they are now finally merging into 5G, where content and connectivity come together. That is how, how I understand 5G. Way back in 2011, I think he was speaking at Korea Telecom, which was a typical telecom company, but was moving into content services, where Michael Hugo's a respected writer, author on this. He spoke that cloud is the future of telecom. And because over a period, cloud, the connectivity is just that, the connectivity. The thing of value is what I get out of this connectivity, where there is customer loyalty and there is monetization. And we can talk of certain companies which have gone from one way, from doing one thing to another. Today, if we look at the networks, what are we using it for? Voice calls are free. When mobile 2G started here, it was 18 rupees per minute. The voice calls were charged. And those days, of course, the income used to be much less. It's not today's 18 rupees. I'm talking of, maybe early 90s or something, early 90s. So, was it? Late 90s, okay. Today, a lot of data people are using in esports, gaming, entertainment, e-commerce, e-office, chats, and then there are a host of e-services which are happening. Content value. Now, more and more, it's becoming to deliver content of value is becoming a network function. You go to Google and you search for something and it doesn't give you exactly what you need. You say, no, this is not what I needed. And you don't feel good about it. Google is working on it, perhaps to give you what you need. But that is how things will have to develop with these AI and ML. Data virtualization and platform services are increasingly coming up. And when we come to content, what are we looking at? I want on demand. I don't have to tell anyone, give me this. I want self-service. Something which can be monitored, measured, that is from the service provider's point of view. I don't want too much of processing burden on my terminal. It will consume my power and my memory space. And I should have it easy. The UX that people call it should be good. I should not need too much of experience. So one of the cases that I was reading was, we have heard of today, if you go to USA, one of the service providers is either AT&T and Comcast. Now, Comcast started as a content delivery service. It used to give videos and all that. It was like a, cable television. AT&T was the standard telecom company. And throughout 80s, they kept on acquiring more and more telecom. And you must have heard about that $15 billion mistake by AT&T when they refused to invest in mobile technologies in the 80s because they saw no future in it. Ultimately, both AT&T had to go down to content. Comcast has gone into connectivities. And that is how both are competing with each other. Most of the companies have had to, deal with both, content and connectivity. I don't know if it is politically correct to talk about Jio in this forum, but that is what they are, also doing. The challenges, of course, are and opportunities. I was just hearing, I think Mr. Pradeep Gupta were talking to somebody that more and more like people are wanting to keep the content closer to you, whether it is Netflix or any other system. So data localization will play a part where we can earn revenue from there. Net neutrality, of course, is something which will always be a little drawback. It is good for the consumers, not so good for the monetization of the companies. But the great opportunity that I see with 5G is the digital transformation of organizations. Every organization, and there is an empirical study which says that any organization which has undertaken digital transformation has increased its profitability by 17%. 17% of a 2 trillion economy is, all of which is not, of course, a company, but I think it should apply to government and everything, is a huge opportunity. And what is meant by digital transformation? It means undertaking digital transactions, making your data online, making it available online, making your transactions online, having them secure. So, and every company can't own its own resources. So that's where cloud comes in, and the techno confluence that we are talking of is the, apart from whatever use cases that we were talking about earlier, which was gaming and sports, and I'm not into it, but my son tells me that online FIFA and PUBG are huge rages, and they earn a lot of revenue. And there are people who are playing FIFA, and there are, those online games are being screened in theaters, and people are sitting and watching them. They don't know who are the players. So it's a totally, I was quite surprised to hear that okay, people will go to watch an online game also, but that's where the world is moving, and there is, gaming is a big thing. So finally, what I wanted to convey in my short presentation and my exposure is that connectivity and content have to go together. Now that with 5G, the connectivity speeds have reached their outer limit almost, in my view, because every technology develops and then it plateaus out. Whether we look at speed of travel, or we look at the capability to destroy human lives, started from gunpowder, ended at fusion bomb, there is something beyond which you don't go, or you can't perhaps go. Speeds, we started with horsebacks, cars, aeroplanes, you went to rockets, but then okay, you stopped at that. So the transmission speeds have been increasing over a period of time. We saw 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. There is a possibility that this is the end of the road as far as the speed of connectivity is concerned. So where do we go from there? Then we start focusing on content, and that's where all the creativity, all the innovations, all the problem solvings, all the decision makings, all the transformational, organizational transformation will be getting done. Now today, if I have to prepare a lecture for this TLF conference, I shouldn't have to go to Google and look at whatever, topic by topic. I should just tell Google, I have a talk to deliver on this. Please give me content related to this, and it should give me PDF 1, 2, 3, PPT 1, 2, 3. Can it do that? Perhaps it can. With 5G, with low latency, with AI ML, and that is the kind of one use case that I'm looking at, which every individual will have. What are the other things that can happen? E-office. E-office, so far we've only thought of e-office as digitization of documents and mails and all that. But what about not having any office at all? Working from home. Once we have those high speeds and low latency, virtual office, virtual conference room, virtual seminars become a reality. We already have telepresence. But then telepresence, you have to go and sit at a place. Why not wherever you are from? Wherever you are working. So those are the kind of things that, and Mrs. Aruna Sundararajan talked about it, that 5G is a general purpose service, it's not just a telecom service, because this speed that we have in 5G and this capability, this potential that we have, can be used for connectivities. After all, trade from the time history started was always about movement. You moved goods, you moved people. And with these connectivities, when you move things virtually, that is how your economy grows. And that will be the most important use case in future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful introduction. And it was definitely completely digital. That's what I like about Army. There is yes and no, clarity, no ambiguity in it. Thanks for giving this wonderful, view into how probably Army looks at the technology and has been using technology.